have had some of the greatest stories of all time. But unfortunately, part of my job is some of the darkest stories of people's days. But through all that, you can really see how Jesus is in and around all of it, which is really what's pretty much held me together, because you hear of tragic suicidal stories from police officers, but for whatever reason, it sure feels like there's always a presence with you.
Welcome to Open Seat, the podcast where we create a space for authentic conversations about faith, unfiltered and unapologetic. Here, we believe that every story matters. Whether you're questioning, seeking, or steadfast in your beliefs, you'll find something relatable in these heartfelt discussions. So grab your seat, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's story here at Open Seat. Today on the podcast, we have Justin Mazur. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And I think I'd ever be here, but like you said, my name's Justin Mazur. I'm not from the Adrian area. My wife's name's, Brooke Mazur now, before Brooke Kirkendall. She comes from part of the Marvin family, so really ingrained into the area. I grew up in the Metro Detroit area. Mother, father, 2 brothers. 38 years old. I work for the state police. I'm a state trooper. Live around the area now.
Well, that's a big difference, right? From Detroit to the booming metropolis of Adrian.
Yeah, that it's a story in itself, right? I met my wife at Wayne State University. We were both athletes and everything, so we developed our relationship there. Afterwards, played professional baseball for a few years. Never made it to the major leagues. Just had a cup of coffee in the minor leagues. But then at the age of 25, Brooke was like, "We're probably gonna have to make a run of this. You're gonna need insurance and a good stable job. Figure
Leave it
something
to your
else
wife,
out."
right?
Well, got to have some kind of guiding force. The Lord only speaks to you when he needs to. So after that, my dad was like, "Hey, the state police are hiring. Sounds like a good thing you'd be into. Easy enough. Sign up for that." And out of recruit school, you have an opportunity to select where you want to go. And I know the Detroit area. And Brooke was like, "We're not doing that." She was like, "Well, we used to vacation up in the UP." And I'm like, "Well, I've been pretty much all over the United States playing baseball. I've never been to the UP. Let's do that." So in 2013, we moved up to Sault Ste. Marie. And if you recall, around that time, it was probably one of the worst winters we've had. And for the 5 Great Lakes froze. And I forget what the weather was like down here. We had over 300 inches of snow. And Brooke learned really quickly, this was not the best idea. As everything goes, the summers are great, but eventually family circumstances draw you back down, and that's kind of how we came back around here. And ever since then, it's been, we got to experience the last few years of her grandfather's life down here, moved in right next to them and everything, and I never really had a special relationship with any of my grandparents to that degree. Coming home and, seeing Jack Marvin out on the farm every single day. You learn a lot about life. They brought Brooke more into the faith. She grew up Catholic just like me, but kind of wandered away a little bit in the middle of life. But when we got together, I've pretty much had a stable relationship with the Lord. Her grandparents went to church every morning at 7:30, I think at the time. We'd get breakfast before or after, and we'd be here. So it's if you want to hang out with me more, I'm going to be with your grandparents. So she gets pulled back into the church, and that's kind of been the ride.
So you have had a strong relationship with the Lord. What do you think sustained that?
Well, my mother. That's been my moral compass from day one. And it's not the same for 2 of my other brothers. So I was the firstborn. There's a 4-year separation between me and my second brother, and they're like the Irish twins, pretty darn close in time. They got me in. I was into Montessori for a while, then went to public school for a minute, and even that difference was a lot at that time when you're still trying to learn yourself and your faith. But then thankfully she put me into Catholic school for high school, and that really rooted me. It was an all-boys Catholic school, and at the time, right, it's this is such a terrible decision. Why are you doing this? I'm missing out on this, that, and the other thing. But looking back as a parent now, you're like, this is the greatest gift you've ever given me. But the whole time, it was, unless you're dead, you're going to church or you're going to school was the thing. My father grew up in a Catholic faith, but it was never at least for him, the number one thing. So he would be probably like most fathers of the generation, where at church he's just kind of nodding and everything, right? But he's there. It's presence. You learn that from your father. It doesn't matter what needs to be done right now, you do it, right? So my mother and my father establishing that allowed me plenty of time and opportunity to grow in my own faith. And then through baseball, traveling the country, just talking to people and just seeing how the Lord works through others, having the unbelievable opportunity of most games are in the afternoon, I got to see hundreds of different parishes across the U.S. and just how every different priest does it, how every different community comes together. And that just kind of works into what I do now for a living. And everyone does my job a little bit differently. And I don't know, I've had been doing it now for 12 years. I've had some of the greatest stories of all time, and been, unfortunately, part of my job is some of the darkest stories of people's days. But through all that, you can really see how Jesus is in and around all of it, which is really what's pretty much held me together, because you hear of tragic suicidal stories from police officers or people in the military, but for whatever reason, I don't want to say I'm protected by any means, but it sure feels like there's always a presence with you.
It's good to know that when we pray those prayers, right? The Blue Mass, or we honor the police officers. We do the police officer luncheon here at the parish. And so it's good to know that our prayers are protecting people, and especially our own.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like people we see every Sunday. Because it's so nice to see you and your wife and Haley out there on Sunday morning.
It is really fun, because when you first come and bringing Brooke back into it, and we, her grandparents like to sit a little further back, but it's so funny, Catholics, right? It's like we sit here and we've always sat here, and then like COVID happens and Haley comes around and she wants to sit up front, and it's like, well, that's, the people sit up front. She wants to be in part of the faith. Well, let's get her up there, right?
Yeah.
And she becomes like a namestay, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's so good to see her when she's there, and she's such a good kid and everything. And you're just, as a parent, right, just battling with her every single mass, just like, don't make a scene, but play and be a child and appreciate for what it is. She's inquisitive, and now it's finding the faith through her and those experiences. And it's a funny story. A little while back, I forget what they are. They're like the traveling, they bring all the different wooden sculptures and everything to the church, and you can buy them.
Yeah.
And I first came across them in Arizona and spent way too much money, bought a whole bunch of really nice stuff. And then it was years, and they came right back here. I was like, oh my God, this is great. Didn't have the funds that I did at the time, right? We just got a small little cross. So Haley was like, can we get it blessed? Absolutely. So Father Mike's there, blesses it for us and everything. And again, finding the faith through your kids. We're outside. We live on a few acres, let the dogs run all around. We're just right outside of Adrian. But we have family like a little ways down the hill. And didn't know they were outside. Brooke's cousins were outside, and their nephews were outside. Did not know they were just petrified of dogs. So dogs are running all around, big dogs, right? A Newfoundland and everything, a German Shepherd, and they're just having a blast. And I'm outside burning stuff, not paying any attention to anything. And then all of a sudden the dogs lock onto them and start running at them. And in the moment I'm like, this is not good, because I could hear Brooke's cousin yelling like, stop your dogs, and they're heat-seeking missiles. So in the chaos that is, Haley, and just the infinite wisdom of the Lord, like, just goes, Dad, I got this, right? And she has her cross in her hands, and she just raises her hands up like this, and the dogs just come to a halt. Oh. And I'm like, in the moment, right, this is just how I've always been in my life and everything. I'm just like, you just thank you, right? I'm not going to question anything. It's just really odd. I could yell as much as possible. They'll stop every now and then, but not like that, right?
Yeah.
But just in a dime. So she brings her hands down, everything, looks over and goes, you're welcome. And just like walks away. But that's the pureness of, honestly, just believing in what she has in her hand and what it means and everything, right? And that's always the inspiration of seeing and believing in your faith through like the heart of a child, that you can do something and that pray or ask something and the prayer will be answered. It might not be the answer you want and everything, but something will occur if you believe in it that much. That was one of my funniest, but truest examples that I've seen recently and experienced.
Yeah, it's incredible, the faith of a child. I get to see it a lot, and it's a blessing. But
what you're doing and everything with just the catechism, and Haley goes to the Christian school around the corner at LCS, and just her search and pure understanding of Jesus, God, and then all the fun questions they ask, because they're searching for it. And just as any child, they ask you question after question after question, you're kind of losing your mind, but it allows you to go on a mission, a search of your own faith. And it's like, wow, I understood that one thing, but maybe not down to this degree. It's like, well, I want to provide my child an answer, so then you start looking for answers. It's
really a gift to be able to look through a kid's eyes, right? Because they just see things from a whole different perspective, even height-wise. They're looking at things at a different perspective. And I'm grateful that your wife helps, because she's helping teach too. So, that's wonderful to see.
It's the same thing, because like I said, she's on her own journey as well, because she didn't finish her faithful upbringing as well. It came to like a certain point, and she was an athlete like me and kind of fell into it. So when we got married at the exact same time, she had to go through confirmation. So we came in, I think Father Sean was here at the time and helped out with that whole process. And through then, every chance she gets, she's like, hey, I kind of think I want to maybe help out with the faith organization, which is absolutely, like my mother did that. Like she was the one that did all of our stuff, and that helped my upbringing, and it's only going to help Haley, and I know you, and it's only going to help what you can bring to everybody else.
Yeah.
So by all means, if there's a calling, answer the phone.
Well, that's a really great way to say that, because I think most people like pretend like it's disconnected.
Yeah. I've heard beautiful things. So for the state police now, like I teach defensive tactics, how we can protect ourselves and how we can protect others, and when needed, put people under arrest. But part of all that is searching for like, how does human behavior come about? What is decision making like? And I've gone down like a scientific rabbit hole as well, but my faithful understanding has always been in and around there. And with all that, there's like the little voice in your head. And just through all my reading, I firmly believe the little voice in my head is just the Lord talking to me at all time. Because what other part of you would tell you when something's like right or wrong? You're not going to tell yourself it's wrong. It's the Spirit just speaking through you. And ever since I've either heard that, it made more sense to me and everything. You're like you said, your perspective just starts changing, and it's like, well, if I truly believe with what that is, it makes not everything easier, but everything's just more simple. There's a lot of hard things in life, but if I truly believe like there's a whisper right there, and if I believe that is the Lord calling and trying to direct my actions forward, it's like, that was easy. Go that way. The hard part of that is like choice. Well, not now. Do I want to? So
Actually taking the step, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think your faith plays an integral part in your career?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Being a quote-unquote like good person is a very difficult thing to do. There's different meaning in that for everybody else. So I believe that's where the element of choice comes from. But if I believe each and every single one of us is made in the image and likeness of Christ, well, then the person across from me is Jesus. Mm-hmm. And if I go about that, no matter what the day is, at least if that's my frame and perspective, and I know if I'm wearing a uniform, no one knows Justin. They're just looking at the officer before them. It's not a personal relationship, but I can at least personalize it through Jesus. I've been surrounded or protected, however you want to say it and everything, and been in some stressful situations, but thankfully there's always been at least a way through it. And a lot of the times is just because of that. And it's like, okay, this is the task I have before me. Nothing crazy is going on where I need to take an immediate step to do anything. Let's talk to somebody or allow this to happen. As long as it's not interfering with the greater public, that's really only what a lot of people want. And I could probably speak for almost most of the people in my profession, or at least all of them. A lot of the times afterwards, people thank us for everything. I've had the amount of grown men who have cried in front of me, just because you'll go to people's houses because they're dealing with, marital issues, relationship issues, children, and those are the things that mean the most. And obviously the behavior that is driving all that, for the good or the bad, there's a root of that. And that's a root that I've dealt with, that we've all dealt with and everything. But like what we're talking about here, everyone has a story and they just want to be heard. And if I just view it from the lens of, well, I'm speaking with Jesus, and if Jesus would treat me like this, well, that's my opportunity in this position that I'm in now to relate that to somebody else. And that's honestly how I've had just so much success in my career, at least, or at least been protected. Mm-hmm.
I have been fortunate to have military police and a former deputy police chief for the city of Adrian in my family. And I'm always amazed at I don't want to say the villainization, but the way that police come across in certain situations. When my uncle said to me, he's like, 95% of the time it's so mundane. It's nothing. It's just being a basic human. Like, please, next time drive safer, or whatever it is. It's basic stuff. But that other 5% that takes it to the next level is where all the discontent comes from for the police. But it's interesting, and I have a lot more respect for the fact that I'm sitting across from you and you say, you look at everybody with the image of Christ. Because that does change any perspective. And I think really anybody, it doesn't matter what profession you're in or what you do, if we just took that approach, how different would our life be to each other?
And even if you don't have the faith, like I work for a state institution and everything, so there's a separation between church and state. But like on our training academy and everything, like our main 3 core principles are do what's right, obviously you're upholding law, treat everyone with respect, and treat them the way you want to be treated. That's the core of the Catholic faith, pretty much, and everything, right? And that's what Jesus would expect, and treat your brother and sister the same. So it's all woven together and underlined however you want to explain it and understand it.
And they have police chaplains on the state police force, right?
In every faith. It was when I played professional, it was the same. Like chaplains they're everywhere, right? I think every organization, profession understands that at some level that is a very important thing, and they offer that. Or there's groups, right? If you don't believe in a faith, or you don't want to be around a chaplain, priest, rabbi, whoever your faith leader is, there's groups of people because we live in a community.
Yeah. We go to the mud hens and the walleye, and they bring their chaplain in and they talk and the players talk and stuff. But I don't know that they've ever identified as Catholic specifically. So I did wonder about the Mass thing. And you were saying you went to Masses in different places. So would you play in the afternoon and then go to Mass on Sunday, or?
Yeah, so it depends, right? Because if you have like a day game and everything, I'm a morning creature. My wife's always, you need to get more sleep. I just wake up, and then I'm up all day long until eventually the lights turn out. But I would go, if they got a 7 a.m. Mass, go to a 7 a.m. Mass. If we have a doubleheader or a morning game, I'd a day off, or if you miss it, thankfully everything's online now, or go to the night Mass. But I think the beautiful thing about the Catholic faith is, for the most part, because I've walked in some pretty crazy parishes, like this one's a Native American parish. Had no idea I was going to a Native American, and it's like a bilingual thing, but it's like, I know the Spanish language a little bit playing baseball. I have no idea all the different ways of communicating, and they have all their different types of cultures. But thankfully, the Mass is the Mass, and I can follow along, and every community invites you in, and you're a part of it for that day. And you take a piece of that away with you and everything. Your faith gets stronger, and again, the way you interact and perceive with people, you grow.
So are there any practices, per se, like not just going to Mass, but like daily Bible reading or certain prayers that you have found to help strengthen your faith as you've done? So, I mean, you travel frequently. So it's not like you have that home base all the time.
Yeah, it's like growing up, right? You just watch a lot of shows or listen to stuff. I was never a great reader, but I would force myself to. So over the course of 6 or 8 years, I read the whole Bible, but just to read it. You would highlight things and write things in your own personal book to come back to every now and then. But that was a goal, right? If I truly believe in this, it's God's spoken word, I should at least understand it. Now, I mean, you can sign up for any podcast or whatever, and they go into grave detail and everything. I mean, there's so many great speakers out there. Right now, I'm doing the daily reflections of Bishop Sheen from the 50s.
Oh, Fulton Sheen.
Fulton Sheen. Yeah, it just outstanding, right? Because I on YouTube would come across any one of the lectures that he did and everything in black and white. You're like, holy, that resonated with me. And then I see like the daily readings that are just words of wisdom, I guess, for better sake, that he had. And just 1 or 2 lines, but they're thought-provoking.
I think there's actually a cause to take up his canonization.
I hope
think
so.
they're working on
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. But yeah, he did have a lot of really good stuff.
And it's simple, and it's for the person, and everything crosses over timelines. So you can hear what he's talking about even in the 50s, and the same battles are being fought today, the same personal struggles. It's all there. Just figure out at least what's talking to you at that time. Put it upon yourself. I'm married, so like look across from the bed and everything. Like, what do you think about this? Like, that's real interesting.
Is there anything particularly from Fulton Sheen right now that you're like, wow, this is profound?
For me, it's the simpler stuff, right? If you know what's right, just do what's right. But just taking 2 words, putting them together in a sentence, and they have polar opposite meanings. And if you literally just switch them around, you can see where the faith truly is right here, and you can see where the struggles and the tribulations in your life are going to go if you go this way. I've noticed in a lot of either his talkings online or at least the written word, that's a very simple thing that he does. Just take 2 different things, switch them around, you get 2 different pathways in life.
So you were saying your brothers aren't in the faith anymore, right?
I think everyone at one point or another goes through their own things. They're a little out of it, which is funny. So here's the best example, right? Or at least an easy one, because we're all parents now, at least in my family. Me and Brooke, for a long time, were like, so we got together in college, so your early 20s and everything. Got married 10 years later. I'm going through math in my head. It's fun. Anyways, in the very beginning, Brooke probably wanted to experience more life, wasn't ready for kids. Outstanding. I'm doing a whole bunch of things personally with my life and work. And eventually, we're like, this is the time. We should probably look into this because we're not getting any younger. And like probably a lot of parents that want to have kids, this isn't working. I don't know why, right? So is it me? Is it how I'm made? Is it Brooke? Is it how she's made? So you're like seeking for answers. Time, years are going by. You're wondering, right? And you're praying upon it, and it's just like nothing's working. Like I said, we travel around a lot, so we were in Detroit, grew up in Detroit, but we were like downtown. We were there for something, but we went to St. Anne's Cathedral, like running the bridge.
By the Canadian border there,
yep. And at the time, I think they've put a lot more work into it, but at the time, it was a pretty decrepit cathedral and everything. We got there like an hour early, because whenever I go to church that I haven't been to, Brooke too, we like walking around looking, seeing if you can run into anybody, right? And we're like, I know who St. Anne is, but what's she the patron saint of? And there's a list of stuff, right? But she's the mother of Mary, and she was the patron saint of mothers longing for children. I'm like, maybe we should start a novena. That would be outstanding. So we like walk in there, write down what we're asking for, a child and everything, put it in the bin, pray, go to mass and everything. 3 days later, find out Brooke's pregnant. And it's like, wow, if it was this easy, if all I had to do was like ask, like that would have been like a great way. There's faith and then there's action along with it, and then the child's belief and everything. Maybe you're at wit's end or whatever, but like I'm gonna go for that. And that's how Haley came into the world. And it's just another one of at least the examples in my life. So I go back to my brothers. They didn't go to Catholic school. Catholic school's very expensive, right? I had a talent, so my parents didn't have a lot of help for a financial sake, but kudos to them. And looking currently as a parent now, it's like Christian school ain't cheap, but we're going to make sure Haley's in that as well. They sacrificed a lot of career and, going up in their career and everything, promotions, to help me and my brothers out. But because my brothers want to, and everyone lives their own life, but this is like a feeling of mine, public school, you don't have the core of the faith, even though it's like in the family at that age and everything. I mean, your surroundings get a vote. So I'm not saying that's maybe why they strayed a little bit, because if as a family it's like we're going to church on Christmas, they'd be there and everything, but for like the day to day, it's not like a big thing. And then questions come in, people in moments of emotion will say things like, I don't believe. And it's like, so they're going through their own struggles faithfully. One of my youngest brother and his first daughter, not long after she was born, had a severe medical episode where they found themselves in the hospital for like 20 days and searching for answers and everything. I could only imagine when you don't have the core, whatever your core is. For us, obviously it's Jesus and everything, which makes, again, everything I think a little simpler, not easy. They struggled. Like, why is this happening? And there's no explanation for it. And it's the hard part with like the dynamics of the family with this, because I think everyone has the struggle of like, I want to be there for you. I think I have the answers, but you kind of know how that conversation goes in heated moments. You don't want to drive someone further away. And it's just, I've always enveloped it, again, through my father's example of like just presence. Like, you know me, you know what I'm founded on. This is how I live my life. I'm going to be there for you. We might not talk about it, but Jesus works through me or my actions, and hopefully like that's the pull just over time. The Lord will wear you down. I'll be there. I was there in the beginning. I've been there throughout. I'll be there in the end and everything. They'll send you the invitations here and there, urge you, knock on it, I'll give you a longer rope. I think that's the beauty of free will, because it's fun with Haley, right? It's like, Daddy, does everybody go to heaven? And it's like, well, it's a pretty tough question. And she's like, if you don't go to heaven, she knows like the Satan and everything. Like, are you with Satan? And I wish I had like the definitive answer, right? But for the most part, it's like, Haley, if you believe in Jesus, and I don't know when you're going to believe in Jesus, and I think maybe at the last day, maybe you didn't know about him your whole life, and he'll reveal himself to you, and you have an opportunity. Say yes or say no. Here's your call. It wasn't there at the time. It's here now. What are you going to do? If you look at the evidence and you're like, no, and I'm going to hang up, well, there's probably a place for you. But I think it's a choice.
It's amazing to me when I've talked to people, especially those who aren't Catholic but decide to make the choice to come into the Catholic Church. They can tell you that throughout the history of their backstory, they have seen the markings of Jesus in different places. And so that is the beauty of free will, but also the downfall of free will.
Oh, absolutely.
You could take it or leave it.
It's the same side of the coin.
And I think some of us, most probably, do this on a regular basis, just with our choices every day. Do my choices show that I take Jesus or I leave him? I think you're right. I tend to say it as everyone has to claim their faith for themselves. Like, you grow up Catholic, cradle Catholic, but then there's that point in which mom and dad don't force you to go to church anymore. Do you want to do this for yourself or not? Right. And I think if you don't have the wrestle, I think if you don't have that struggle, then there will come a time later on down the road where it will, and you're going to have a really hard time with that.
Oh, it's not even a wrestle sometimes. Sometimes it's a fight. Sometimes it's everything, right? Because like the free will thing, it's like I know the very thing I should do, but then at the same side, I'll continue to do the very thing I hate. I have that constant struggle daily. Some of the times in my life, I've chosen the very thing I hate for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's just everyone does it the same, but like a part of me, you might make that decision. If you stay on the course, that's a continuation of that choice, no matter how long it lasts. But at some point, hopefully everyone has the like, okay, no, that was obviously an error in who I am. And you confess for what you've done for, learn from what you've done for. And then hopefully as easy or hard as you get back on the path. But it's a wrestle, like you said, daily. But I'm looking for anything in my life to make that battle a little bit easier. And it is easier, I think, the more you're out there and through my work and everything, you'll see it all the time in the simplest of answers, right? If I see someone, and Brooke always made it a fun thing, right? Especially when we were up north, because up north there's a bunch of smaller communities, even though Adrian's a pretty much smaller community, right? But you would see people at Walmart or something, because for Walmart's the local watering hole, right? So up in like Sault Ste. Marie, after we've been there for long enough, would just start coming up and talking to me. And Brooke's like, who is that? I've never seen that person before. Oh, I was like, I arrested them 2 days ago or whatever. You know what I mean? She's like, what the heck? Why are they so nice to you? Like, you took them to jail? I'm like, what for? I'm like, do you want to know what for? If I honestly perceive everybody as Jesus, that interaction, good or bad for what needs to be done in that situation, what they take away is a sense of Jesus. So to the point where they see me in Walmart and they don't do something crazy or run away. They walk up to you and ask how you're doing as now a person, because I'm not in a uniform. That speaks mightily. Just about the perspective of everyone before me is Jesus. What has he given me without cost? And then what can I give back? And that's been like the underpinning of how I've done my career and how I've tried to live my life. And it pays back exponentially. It's like, why do I deserve this? I don't deserve any of this. I have a family. I have a house over my head. I have a little bit of money in the bank and everything, food upon the table. Like, that's enough. Because when you compare it to like the rest of the world, and if you look globally, and like there's atrocities going on, you want to be able to help everywhere you possibly can. But unless I don't join the Peace Corps, like I can't go over there and solve that. But what can I do here and now? Pick something you can, put it through this perspective of Jesus, and start. Go.
That's a very great way to look at it, right? I mean, we can get overwhelmed easily by the amount of things happening in this world at any given time. And what's amazing is I've been listening to past stories of presidents, and the world has been a dumpster fire all along. Like, you know, I mean, just like they're talking about wars all over all the time. And so I'm like, oh, well, we're not the only ones facing this dumpster fire. Like, this has happened throughout the course of history, and they're still okay.
Every problem that is a human has been involved with has been done before. There's a lesson to learn. If you like reading, if you like stories and just talking with someone, great. If you like watching video, it's all there. Just start searching for it, see what it means to you, try implementing it in your life and everything, and you'll be amazed. And obviously, like having the conversation here, if you look at it through the focus of our faith, that's the gift. Honestly, that's how I felt it. Without cost, this was given to you. What am I now going to do with it?
I'm grateful. You've shared a lot of wisdom with us today. But if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, well, we could think of it as like Haley's going to listen to this podcast, right? What advice are you going to give her?
Right. It'd be like, listen to your father. No, right? Exactly. I try to listen to my father, like listen to your father. But at the time, you don't want to do that. I'm sure there's some things in life you look back on and you're like, wow, I wish that never happened, or I would have done something differently. But I think the part of life is the lessons you've learned. If you're fortunate enough to make it through some lessons and everything, so there's a grain of salt that comes along with that. But I wouldn't change anything about it. I truly believe, I don't know, call it intuition, call it your consciousness, call it whatever it is. If that is Jesus talking to you, accept it for that and don't think twice about it. Because the human side of it is to just like, right? Because I have free will right here. And I can go that direction. And there were multiple times in my life, probably like everybody else, where he spoke and I didn't answer. Or I hung up. Or I hit delay or silent or whatever. And thankfully, through the grace of God, I survived. Because there were plenty of times, like, I called sheltered or whatever, or I was on a mission to, get somewhere in my athletics. Like, I didn't drink at all or party at all. And then you get around friends, and there was one time, and you can't do anything in America, so you go to Canada, and I'm underage, I don't know what any of this is, and you find yourself in an area, and you're like, wow, this is bad. I hope I survive. And by the grace of God, you do. And you learn what that feeling feels like. And
you try to not get there
right,
again.
Exactly. Jesus speaks to all of us in our own way. We're all individuals. For me, obviously, it's the silent but steady voice within me. And I 100% believe that's him, the Holy Spirit, God the Father, Jesus. Answer. Go. He'll be there with you and everything. Open all of the doors before you. And then it's your life. Make it what you want. And for Haley, it's trying to open all the doors. And that's the fun thing about kids. It's like I wish I could give them knowledge. At that level, knowledge isn't a thing. It's activities and fun. So for Haley, Liz, it's just playing games or doing things where for me, I know the answer or the thing to be chosen is more the godly way as opposed to the... So they're learning through activities. So the fun part about being a parent and everything is setting that up. And at the same time, the whole presence thing, because Brooke is a saint for what I do and everything. And she runs the household. And then when I come home and I might not be off work, she gives me like a longer leash. She'll check me when I need to be checked and everything very sternly, but like rightfully so, because I'm very task oriented and she knows I love her, love Haley and everything, but I get on the path sometimes. She'll just stop me and be like, you're here now. That's not my inner presence, but if I believe we are one under God and everything, that's now the pathway, the voice that's speaking to me now. All right, I'm here now. I'm throwing her in the air until I pass out, right? Because in this moment, she's going to learn Jesus through her father for whatever it is. And I try to do that. Same thing with Brooke. Same thing with anybody in the family or anyone you come across in life. I can't tell you how many times, and Brooke doesn't understand. I don't understand it. I'll just be at the gas station, at the shopping mall or whatever, and people just come up to me and talk to me. Brooke's like, why do people do that? I'm like, I don't know. Because I think I walk around with like a stern face, but they just walk up to you. And it's Jesus is the light of the world. And if you inspire that or bring that about you, maybe you shine. And when people walk up to you and everything, just, again, treat them like you want to be treated, like Jesus would. Because you might be the only one that day who gives them that look, that voice, and you don't know what ripple effect that will have. And I can tell you from the profession that I've been in, the change I've seen in people in their lowest moments, that's all it takes. It's difficult, but it's simple. Just be there, reflect Jesus, and he will come out in whatever activity. The more you practice it, I mean, truly believe it and everything. Like I said, random people just over and over and over either walk up to you, come about you, ask for your help and everything. It's like, that's not me. Because when I'm working, I look at it as like a split thing, because when I'm at home, I'm a very personal person. Obviously, we live on property, even though I grew up like in the city and everything. Once I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to have people around me. Like, this is beautiful, right? How can we get more land? When you go out shopping, or we go to the Toledo Zoo during the summer all the time, there's people everywhere. People look around, they notice others and everything. And if you have all these people just continually coming up to you, talking about you, again, that there's something else at work right here. And I just accept that for what it is. I truly believe it is Jesus and everything. All right, what do you want to do today? And I ask that all the time. I don't go to confession all the time, but it's like, all right, it's Sunday. I'm here at church. We're about to go receive the body and blood of Christ. Jesus, wipe away all my sins, make me as white as cloth on the day I was born, and come into my life and work through me. I'm the ship. Steer me wherever you want to go. I'll bring aboard whoever needs to be brought aboard and take them wherever they need to go. And I've just kept some type of premise or core to that with whatever I do. And for whatever reason, my life has been, quote unquote, good. I don't want to figure it out. This is how simple of a creature I am. It drives Brooke wild and everything, because she is very future oriented, thinks about a whole lot of stuff and everything, as she has to, because like, I live in the moment. But I truly believe it's just because the Bible's, for however it's written, it's like tomorrow's already been won. It's been overcome. Let me have it. If you have a care of concern, throw it upon me. In the moment, stay calm, believe in Christ, and then do the very next best thing you can. Life isn't linear like that, but that's how I control the chaos around me.
And you could have a lot of chaos. I mean, you got Haley, you got Brooke.
Well, that's my chaos, though, because you look at everybody else, and there's chaos all around and everything.
That's what I mean. And you live in the world of utter chaos.
Sure.
Right? I mean, for like 21 hours a day. That's tough.
That's my creation, though. Even the people I work with are like, you are something. Like, why? It's not worth it. But it's like, if I truly believe Jesus put me into my life for this time, and I'm only going to be alive for who knows, because all I have is the present moment and what I was given and what I choose to do with it. So many hours in the day, I'm just going to throw myself 100% into it. And if I have a mission, obviously I teach defensive tactics, subject control for the state police. There's means and methods, but the reason behind why and the meaning is going to answer a lot of those questions. It's going to be the experience where you have to learn that for yourself. I have to create a learning environment where, if it's surrounded by Jesus, people have to learn the lessons that thankfully I've been given over the course of my life, what it means for them, and now all of them can go all around the state and everything and spread Jesus far and wide. And that's just, thankfully, the boat or vessel that I currently have. So it's like, well, I'll probably have dementia or Alzheimer's pretty quickly because I don't sleep at all or anything. Probably don't have the greatest of healthiest habits, but this is how I view my days. There's a human element into that, but I try to center everything around Jesus and just go.
Well, I can't thank you enough for what you've shared with us today. We appreciate you being here and sharing your story, and it's an amazing story. But also to remind us that everyone we encounter is Jesus and to see him in that way. So thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today.
I never thought I'd do this. It's funny, right? Been in a lot of stressful situations, and you sent me a text message yesterday, and all of a sudden, that was the most stress I've ever been under. I was like, oh no. What am I going to talk about? And I'm like, Brooke, what do I do? Right? And she's like, just do what you do. I don't know. It's your story.
And your story has a lot of different facets, and so I'm grateful that you shared all of them with us today.
There's a lot, but hopefully there's something to take away.
Oh, I'm sure.
If not, like I said, come up to me. We're trying to be at church as much as we can.
Well, thanks again for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Once again, we thank you for joining us today. We hope that wherever you find an open seat in your life, you will invite someone to join you.